The Prime Minister has announced the most drastic limits to our lives that the UK has ever seen in living memory. The aim, he says, is to save lives in this time of national emergency. Without a huge national effort, Mr Johnson has made it clear there will come a moment when the NHS will not be able to cope and more people will die.
Hey, I'm here with Amy right now. She's listened to this video. Oh my God, Amy, what do you make of that? They're going to obviously see the video after we've talked, but what do you make of that?
Oh, I think it's awful. Everything that they're planning to implement, making the people stay in their houses, that they can only go out, for certain essential things, like maybe to buy food, and how they have to, when they do go out, they can only be in these little tiny groups, and that's kind of dangerous. They used to tell us all the time, if you're going out somewhere, that you should really be in a group with other people because there's safety in numbers. But now they're encouraging people, if you do go out, you want to go all by yourself, or I don't know if they said one other person or not, but just makes it sound like they're in jail, because telling them they're allowed out for so many, so much time
for an hour's exercise. You can't be more than two in a group. Yeah, it sounds like prison stuff.
It does. It sounds exactly like prison.
And not just that, I've been watching Boris, and the other day when he said he was closing the schools down because he didn't want the burden on the NHS. I mean, that's what I said. What, the children leave school and go to the hospital instead? And then in this video, he talks about the national health. Basically it's like the national health is flooded with people, so you all stay at home. But that's not going to be true. And I bet you, if you just went down to your local hospital, you're not going to find hundreds of people with this thing.
Right, that's what I think.
So what are they doing to us, and why are they doing it? They are putting us into a reset. We're never going to be the same coming out of this.
That's right.
In it, he talks about, they'll look at what these conditions which have been set. We'll be looking at them in 3 weeks. So we're going to be in this for at least 3 weeks.
Well, at least 3 weeks. That is really something.
I told you, I went out to my daughter's car, and I thought, I can see a helicopter. There's a couple of planes around. I heard a train. So things are still running here that I can hear.
Yes.
But what is this?
I know. I can hear a plane going over right now, But yeah, what is
and also
this?
This woman says, in precedented history, we've never gone through anything like this. But that's not true. We did in 1918 with the Spanish flu.
That's right.
So what is all this about? Why? And the media, they're not looking at causes or learning out more information. They're just telling you stuff all the time.
That's right. They only tell us stuff, and very vague. I feel like they'll tell us a certain number of cases have been diagnosed.
Why isn't Trump and Boris looking more worried?
Yes, that's a good point. Because
what I've noticed is that there's sort of something in place with some of these businesses, and then they've got coronavirus all over their channels. I mean, all over their web pages and that. But then there's also not there, but they're quite organised.
Yes. Well, I think the reason that Boris and Trump don't have a motion is because it's been already recorded. This thing has been in the works for a while.
Well, that's what we worked out, because that's what happened when he won the general election.
Yes, and I think that maybe the impeachment hearings was a distraction while they were busy gearing this whole thing up, with this coronavirus.
We have all been saying, though, that we thought something was going to go on weeks ago, because we kept saying that they're ramping it up. They're just ramping everything up. It just feels like this train is going...
Yes. It does, and it's just very alarming, and I don't...
Because what happens is, you see, people won't listen. Then they'll have to send the soldiers in to keep us in our houses.
Yes, that would be the next step.
And how can they
That's
do
right.
it when they're? I'm sorry. I know that on this other video with the phones, I put, you know, obviously in China that millions of people's phones had turned off. But like,
Yeah.
how can they put us in our houses for such a small amount of people like dying? And if it was all about segregating and all this kind of stuff, like, what are we listening to? What are they doing to us?
I know. I that's what I'd like to know,
We're
Karen.
not at the bottom yet. There's more coming yet.
Exactly. So I just don't know what it is all about. But even in my neighborhood, I've noticed more people are saying, you know, there is something very fishy going on here. You know, they just get it because we've never seen anything like this. So I think people are realizing that there's some further agenda behind it. But what that is what I don't know.
Anyway, we've been going for 6 minutes now. We actually want them to watch the video.
Yes.
What's your final thoughts then as we're leaving? Because I'm just so confused. I mean, is this thing a computer thing? They have those things on there as well, don't they? What is it?
Yeah, I think it's
either something somewhere else, like.
I think it might just be a test to see how they can control the people. I think that might be part of it, or it's just that
you can't do anything without money, though, can you?
That's right. Or so it also is just a thing that they're using to set up the new world order and get to the one world currency and pushing a vaccination on the people. I think as many possible agendas, you know, surrounding this whole scenario.
But making us believe it and putting all these statements out, and imagine how many people are going to be watching all these things. Anyway, Amy,
yes.
We've got to finish now because it's 7 minutes.
Okay.
But Amy, thank you so much for helping and coming on.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
From tonight, you can only leave your home for very specific reasons. They are to shop for basic necessities such as food and medicine. You can go outside for only one form of exercise a day, alone or with members of your household. All gatherings of more than 2 people are banned, excluding your family. You can leave home for any medical need or to care for a vulnerable person. And finally, you can travel to and from work, but only where absolutely necessary and if you cannot work from home. These new restrictions can be enforced by the police, including using fines. Today, 335 people are confirmed to have died from coronavirus. That's 6 times more than this time last week. Our political editor, Laura Koonsberg, joins us live from Westminster. And Laura, we're all just taking these huge changes in, but the Prime Minister clearly felt he had no other option tonight.
That's right, Fiona. None of us have ever heard a message like it. No politician alive could ever have imagined delivering it. And that's because the coronavirus crisis is a situation that the country has simply never faced anything like in living memory. And that's why Boris Johnson tonight described this as a moment of national emergency. The coronavirus crisis is hitting home.
The clock starts on a new phase. Big Ben keeping time on an era none of us could have imagined. Inside, at a desk in Downing Street, an admission to every one of us outside.
Without a huge national effort to halt the growth of this virus, there will come a moment when no health service in the world could possibly cope, because there won't be enough ventilators, enough intensive care beds, enough doctors and nurses. And as we've seen elsewhere in other countries that also have fantastic healthcare systems, that is the moment of real danger. To put it simply, if too many people become seriously unwell at one time, the NHS will be unable to handle it, meaning more people are likely to die, not just from coronavirus, but from other illnesses as well. So it's vital to slow the spread of the disease.
No longer just advice on how to battle the virus, but a demand from Number 10.
From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home. Because the critical thing we must do to stop the disease spreading between households. That is why people will only be allowed to leave their home for the following very limited purposes. Shopping for basic necessities as infrequently as possible. One form of exercise a day, for example, a run, walk or cycle, alone or with members of your household. Any medical need to provide care or to help a vulnerable person, and travelling to and from work, but only where this is absolutely necessary and cannot be done from home. That's all. These are the only reasons you should leave your home. If you don't follow the rules, the police will have the powers to enforce them, including through fines and dispersing gatherings.
This isn't only an emergency for our hospital wards, but for the country. So all shops must shut unless they sell necessities. All gatherings of more than 2 people banned. The measures will be reviewed in 3 weeks, but...
No Prime Minister wants to enact measures like this. But at present, there are just no easy options. The way ahead is hard, and it is still true that many lives will, sadly, be lost. And yet it is also true that there is a clear way through. In this fight, we can be in no doubt that each and every one of us is directly enlisted. Each and every one of us is now obliged to join together to halt the spread of this disease, to protect our NHS and to save many, many thousands of lives. And I know that as they have in the past, so many times, the people of this country will rise to that challenge and we will come through it stronger than ever. We will beat the coronavirus and we will beat it together. And therefore, I urge you at this moment of national emergency to stay at home, protect our NHS and save lives.
Labour had been calling from today for a firmer hand.
We do need to understand how they'll be enforced. We do need to understand the details of who can actually travel to work and who can't travel to work. People are frightened, people are concerned, people just want certainty and clarity. So we welcome what the Prime Minister has said tonight, it's what we were calling for, but we hope the government can quickly follow it up with the details that families tonight deserve to hear.
The demand in every corner of the UK tonight: close the doors.
Let me be blunt. The stringent restrictions on our normal day-to-day lives that I'm about to set out are difficult and they are unprecedented. They amount effectively to what has been described as a lockdown. I know how difficult all of that is, and I am not going to seek to sugarcoat it in any way. But these measures are essential for the protection of all of us.
Our politicians can't hide from the scale of this. Now neither can we. After effort and pain, this will pass, but the country may look different on the other side.
Well, Laura, for people listening at home, hearing this for the first time, this will be pretty shocking. And could there be more restrictions yet to come?
Well, Fiona, as you say, first of all, I think it will take all of us some time to absorb the scale of what the government has announced here. But I think it's also fair to say, as the government's always tried to say throughout this crisis, that nothing is off the table if the advice they receive from their scientists actually takes them there. You know, ministers have been at pains to say that since the start. Whatever the data tells them, whatever the scientists tell them, they will try to make the best decisions at the best time to do so. But it's also true that rather than a step-by-step approach, this feels now like the government is sprinting to try to keep up with this in what is obviously an extremely serious situation. And the approach has moved very quickly as the numbers of cases have really begun to rise. But in terms of these measures alone, it's very clear that Boris Johnson and his advisers got to the point where they felt they had no choice but to move to a much more drastic approach, and this much clearer, very crystal clear message to the country: stay at home, close the doors. Now, it is worth remembering other countries are still taking a much more draconian approach. We are not talking about anything like curfews or travel bans, some of the things that we've seen happen in other countries. Remember too, of course, for the majority of people that contract coronavirus, it is a mild illness. Most people recover. But because it is not for those people who are unlucky enough to fall very seriously ill, and there are very many vulnerable people at risk, this, as a result of the decisions that the government has taken, is an extremely serious moment for the country in a very precarious position.
Laura at Westminster, thank you. Are all trying to understand what they mean, how they will change our lives. They will remain in place for at least 3 weeks. Here's our home editor, Mark Easton.
A fortnight ago, London was a throbbing global city. Tonight, it's reduced to providing life support. Near empty streets echo to the wail of sirens. Food stores, petrol stations and pharmacies now operate as emergency services with a plea to shop only once a week.
I have a kid at home and he gets hungry, but I've told him we have to live on what we need.
And once a week, can you manage that?
I think you can manage once a week if you shop carefully.
I think he's made the right decision, actually. We have to flatten the curve and prevent as many deaths as possible and ease the pressure on the NHS.
You think once a week shopping's too difficult?
It is.
So will you be trying to go out more often than that?
Yes, please.
It was last orders at this chicken shop.
Well, if it's good for the people and good for the country, it has to be.
The shops are closed, the theatres are dark, the bars are shut. The vitality and enterprise that built London has been banished. Police patrol a city where the rules of law-abiding life are changing radically. For the most part, officers will use encouragement rather than enforcement. But that too may change if people won't do what they're told.
What are you doing here tonight?
I'm doing my YouTube channel.
A YouTube channel?
Yeah, I got my YouTube channel.
Do you think you should really be out?
Yeah, because this is the updated.
The temples and monuments to human endeavour remain, but the crowds are not welcome now. A city whose purpose is to bring people together is tonight focused on keeping people apart. Will it work? Can the people of London, and indeed Britain, hold their collective breath, give the health workers the time they need? That is the test, perhaps, upon which history will judge this country. Mark Easton, BBC News, London.
Well, as we heard there, the police will be enforcing the new restrictions. Our Home Affairs correspondent Daniel Sanford is outside New Scotland Yard. So how is this enforcement going to work in practice, Daniel?
Well, I think a lot of the details are still quite sketchy. It's not quite clear what powers the police will use, but officials insisted tonight that the police will have the necessary powers, and that's going to be something that we're going to hear more about, I think, in the next day or two. But certainly senior officers I've spoken to are hoping they're going to be able to do this more by persuasion than by enforcement. They're hoping that if they were to find a shop open that wasn't supposed to be open, they'd be able to go up and say, listen, you're really not supposed to be open. Maybe go with council officials, persuade them to close, say we're not leaving until you shut. Maybe if they find a group of people gathering who are clearly breaching the rules about public gatherings, they might be able to persuade them to disperse. But the government is insisting that it is giving police powers to enforce these new rules if necessary.
Daniel Sanford, outside New Scotland Yard, thank you.
Wow, after listening to that, Amy had a couple of little thoughts, didn't you, Amy?
Yes, I did. I was thinking about how ever since we've gone into self-isolation and self-quarantine, that the numbers are continuing to rise as far as how many new cases are reported. And that makes absolutely no sense to me, that if we're self-isolating and self-quarantine, why aren't the numbers dropping? Why do we keep hearing of new cases? It doesn't make any sense. You would think that the cases would be steadily declining because of the fact that they are encouraging the self-isolation and self-quarantine. So there again, it just doesn't make any sense. to me that every day we see new cases when we've taken all these measures to eliminate contact with other people and everything, and yet the numbers continue to increase by what we see, what they tell us.
And don't forget, I've already mentioned in this, there's such a burden on the national health. I mean, maybe not now, and I think the hospitals are quite empty. I had to go to the hospital for one of my ladies last week, and the hospital was quite empty. Yeah, there wasn't many people in there, and they're all staying away. So if we're already staying away, where's this big surge?
Exactly.
If we're all in our houses, which most of us have been for the last, well, at least it's about Wednesday, Thursday last week, Tuesday, not Wednesday last week, where's the big surge?
That's right. Why do we have this surge when we all been staying in our houses?
Yeah, anyway, we just wanted to add that bit at the end, and you know, this whole video, I'm sorry, how can we be happy with this? How can you stop it? If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Nothing you do is going to stop it. It didn't work in China, then did it with my video earlier on? If 12 million people, whatever it is, have disconnected their phones, so it's obviously not working.
Yeah, that's right.
And I don't even think it's that anyway. Something else is going on here. It's so whatever. But anyway, Amy, thank you so much.
You're welcome, Karen.
Love
Thank
you lots.
you.
Oh, and we wanted to say love to everybody, and so sorry that we're in this situation together, but we should come together, not be isolated.
Absolutely. Well said, Karen.
You know, is that what's going on? They're trying to isolate us when really we should all be coming together. But anyway, thank you, Amy. Lots of love.
Yes. Lots of love to you too, and to everyone else out there. Much love.